This is Andi Purewal for Boxing News. I'm joined by promoter Eddie Hearn from the other side of the world out in Las Vegas. Ed, how are you? How is that Vegas? I assume sunshine treating you.
Yeah, lovely. We're at the Fontainebleau, which is by far the best resort I've ever been to in Las Vegas. Brand spanking new. First boxing event here on Saturday night. First sporting event. Lovely arena. Good card as well. Really good night of boxing. And looking forward to it.
Richardson Hitchins versus Gustavo Lemos. Talk to me about that fight, and obviously as Hitchins promoter, how important it is if he's to come through unscathed. He produces somewhat of a real take notice performance.
Yeah, I think, it's a final eliminator for the IBF world title. So the winner fights the winner of Subriel Matias against Liam Paro, which is a great opportunity. I think Hitchins is right up there with the Devins and the Shakurs and the Tiafimos in terms of ability. You just got to try and be exciting. We know he can school people. Lemos is 29-0. Obviously, he's been ordered to fight a final eliminator. He's very aggressive. He punches hard. And I think the style will suit Richardson. But last time out, he schooled Zepeda, but he couldn't get him out of there. And I think a statement is what we need. You just saw a statement from Dalton Smith, and it goes a long way. So for me, I want a performance where he can stand on the turnbuckle after and scream and shout for all those top guys at 140, because I think he's the real deal.
I mean, you just mentioned obviously Dalton's performance, and when you look at the run of super lightweight shows you guys have, and you're a part of, obviously you had Dalton Smith last week, this one, you got Paro Matias on the horizon, Taylor Cattrall too, Haney-Garcia as well in and amongst it. All of these names for Richardson Hitchins, it's important that he kind of stands out from the rest.
Yeah, he's a young American fighter that's really good. So he's in the hottest division in boxing right now, which is the 140-pound division. And, I think that he's right up there and he's capable of beating all these guys. But like everything, it's difficult sometimes, Andy, to say to a fighter, yeah, you could go in there and be more aggressive, when they're thinking, what? I can just school this guy and win easy. But the reality is people want to see excitement. And if he can put that excitement together, it's going to put him in a great position to land the big fights.
I know you could make a lot of great fights internally, but I did see one comment you made where you suggested you'd love to work with Al Heyman to try and make a Subriel Matias and Isaac
Oh,
Cruz fight.
yeah. It's one of the best fights in boxing. I mean, look, a lot of people are looking past Liam Paro, but he's a hell of a fighter. And, he's looking for the upset in Puerto Rico. But if Matias was to come through, him against Isaac Cruz, Mexico, Puerto Rico, big unification at 140, it's a monster fight. And so many great fights to be made at 140. And we got more than anybody in terms of liquidity in that division.
Diego Pacheco returning again, Eddie. He's touted as a future, the next star from this Matchroom stable who will become world champion. What does he need to show tomorrow night?
Same. He's going for his 10th knockout on the spin. I mean, Diego's been faultless, really. And against Caceres, he showed a little bit of toughness and a little bit of heart as well, which he hasn't had to show too much of in his career. He's 20-0. Sean McCalman is 15-0. He's a good fighter, but I think Diego will look sensational on Saturday. Just the next fight after this, if he comes through, is going to be a big fight in Los Angeles. And I just feel that although he's moving nice and quickly because he's very young, this is the kind of fight where you can just step back a little bit. And I'm not a massive fan of treading water, but I am if it means gaining experience and just composing yourself, growing as a young man. He's still young. We signed him at 17. And, I do believe that Diego Pacheco is the future at the 168-pound division.
Obviously, glad you fight. Fellow Brummie to myself returning as well. A lot of talk about the Sonny Edwards fight, though,
Yeah,
spoken about it this week. Do we see that this year?
I think so. I mean, I only mentioned it the other day in an interview because I just thought, what's the big fights for Galal Yafai? Obviously, fight for a world championship. I love fights like Quadras and stuff like that. But a big domestic fight is intriguing between Sonny and Galal. He's got a good fight, actually, against Galto this week. He's 25-1 or something like that. He's a big puncher, this guy. And Galal's been hit a little bit too much in the last few fights because I don't think he's really respecting the opposition as much. I think he'll respect this guy because he's a puncher and he's dangerous. And Galal comes out like a train at all times. So you're going to see a really good ding-dong between those two. And for me, Galal must be in those kind of fights in 2024. So get Saturday out of the way and then start focusing on that world championship.
And final one, Eddie, before we come on to a few other topics, Sky Nicolson, potentially the next world champion in the Matchroom stable.
Yeah, it's a tough fight against Mahfoud. Obviously she was chasing Amanda Serrano. She vacated and then it was number 1 against number 2. Mahfoud, former world champion, 1 defeat on her record to Serrano. in a good competitive fight. You know, she took rounds off Serrano. So it's well beyond the level Sky's boxed at before, but she's got the pedigree, and it's a massive night for her to become world champion.
Eddie, I'm sure I'm not the only one to have asked you from a British side of things this week. Adam Azim and Dalton Smith won't be happening. Adam pulling out well, vacating rather his European title. Then we saw himself and Harlem Eubank facing off on Sunday night. The fight, in between the fight when Dalton Smith would have left the ring for Florey Marker Chris Congo, and then Wardley Clarke. What did you make of how everything's unfolded?
With Harlem Eubank and all that sort
Harlem Eubank, Adam Azim.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to try and do something, haven't you? Like they've had a stinker. They've played it so badly with Adam Azim that you got to try and kind of cover up the duck, if you like, by pretending that Adam Azim against Harlem Eubank is this massive fight. But you've only got to look at what's said or what's been said. You know, why would we put Dalton Smith in, Adam Azim in with Dalton Smith? He's 27 and Adam Azim's 21. Well, Harlem Eubank's 30. So that got to do with it, you know. Why would I cash out Adam Azim against Dalton Smith? Well, when you cash out, it means you get a payday for losing. So what, you know, everything's just coming out that we knew. Adam Azim's nowhere near as good as Dalton Smith, and he's not on that level, which is fine. But I don't know why we get to the day before the purse bid to see these decisions, because it affects the reputation of their fighters. Fraser Clarke had a terrible time when they did it to him, like awful, you know. And you know, he messaged me at the time. He was in bits, because these fighters, they want the fights, but there's nothing wrong with the decision. It was just a decision that should have been made 7 or 8 weeks before to protect their fighter. And when you're out there saying, you know, there's an agenda against us and we just want to make the biggest fights, we don't really, because and I want to sit down with Eddie. I mean, you talk to Frank Smith all the time, but you don't really want to sit down with us because there's been 5 fights ordered between Boxer and Matchroom, and you've pulled out of every one of them. So how can you say you want to make those great fights? And again, I think they've made the right decision for Adam Azim, because he would have got beat by Dalton Smith, and they don't want him to get beat yet. But you know, you can talk about building a fight over 3 years, and one day it will be pay-per-view. Who's to say one of them don't get beat? You know, I'm just all about rolling the dice, really. And I know they criticise like Jordan Thompson, who in his last fight at cruiserweight took a payday to chase greatness against Jaya Pattaya. So what? You know, I mean, if you just want to protect your fighters, I mean, you've got like Ben Whittaker fighting central area level guys when he's I believe he's a world-class light heavyweight prospect. So matchmaking's key. But the problem is when you fight at those levels, you're not ever really ready for the step up. But yeah, I guess we can get on with business for Dalton Smith now.
Despite Ben's comments about wanting to sit down and meet up with yourself, try and make fights, has all of these past experiences in terms of fighters being pulled out from purse bids made it somewhat a bit more difficult from your perspective to want to work with him?
No, because we keep the communication lines open all the time. Frank Smith speaks to Ben Shalom whenever they need to. Once a week, once every 2 weeks. It's not like we don't talk to him. Of course we do. But all you hear is what's said in interviews, which is, you know, we just can't understand. There's just an agenda out here against Sky. I just don't know what it is, you know, and it's like, it's absolute bollocks. The proof is in the pudding. Like, I've even said, we'll do the fight on Sky. And then Shane McGuigan said, yeah, but you have to promote it. I'm like, what? So I have to give you my fighter and also help you promote it, which I'll do anyway. But I just wish it would happen sooner. Like they pulled Fraser Clarke out of the purse bid on the day of the purse bid. They pulled Richard Riakporhe out of the purse bid against Jaya Pattaya on the day of the purse bid. They just mess fighters around, and it's not fair to the fighters as well. Because we Ben Shalom told Frank Smith a month ago that Adam Azim wasn't going to fight Dalton Smith. So why wait and let the kid take all that stick and abuse on social media? And now he's got to fight Harlem Eubank. You know, they get those two in the ring. The fight's not even signed. Harlem Eubank hasn't done a deal. Now it's going to cost them so much money. Because if I'm Harlem Eubank now, and if I'm Chris Eubank Sr., and I know he'll know because he's sharp enough to do it, oh my God, you're taking them to the absolute cleaners. you're taking their trousers down on this one because they have to make that fight now. They have to. Because how silly would they look if they pull out the Dalton-Smith fight to take the Harlem Eubank fight, and then the Harlem Eubank fight don't happen? So we'll see.
Just with Wardley Clarke this past weekend, he was obviously a fantastic fighter. Do you want to get your reflections on it?
Yeah, I turned it on about the 6th or 7th round. So I missed the knockdown and the point deduction. And what I saw was a very competitive fight from that moment. So I can't really give my opinion on who I thought won. I guess it was quite split, you know. Fabio Wardley made some very nice comments about me yesterday, and I did think that Fraser might pip him in the fight, but I take it all back now because of the lovely things he said. So I think Fabio won the fight by 8 rounds. I thought he was robbed, and I can't wait to work with him again. So no, it's really what you want to see in a British title fight. You know, these domestic Lonsdale belt fights give us such great fights. You saw it with Nathan Heaney recently. You saw it with Reece Bellotti against Liam Dillon. You saw it with Fabio against Fraser. That's why we want to make more of those domestic fights. They always deliver, and fair play to both. You know, I phoned Johnny Fisher after. I said, you got to get, you know, I love him in those fights, in 1 or 2 fights time, because it's going to be so exciting. And you don't want too many fights like that. I know the fans do, but like that injury to Fabio and the nose and what he went through in that fight, he showed a tremendous amount of heart. But maybe a cleaner victory next time would be nice.
Eddie, I want to stick with the heavyweight division. Obviously, your man, Anthony Joshua. Before we come on to kind of the retirement quotes, which came out from the Jonathan Ross show, I was going to get your thoughts on kind of that September bill. Now, obviously, there's talk of Turkey El Sheikh bringing a show to the UK at Wembley in September. AJ's headline there before. He's a stadium fighter. Is he kind of a front runner for it?
Do you know what? I'll see a lot of speculation about who AJ is going to fight, Wembley shows, all this. At the moment, nothing is confirmed. You know, there's always discussions about fights, shows. Right now, as we stand, there is no plans or anything concrete in place for Anthony Joshua next. We know that the IBF title might become vacant after the Fury Usyk fight. If it is, AJ would be in a good position to fight for that. Our eyes are firmly focused on May the 18th and the Usyk Fury fight, because obviously we want the winner. I think it's very likely that AJ's next fight will be for a world title. You know, he'd probably like to fight before September. So at the moment, absolutely nothing concrete or confirmed. But I do think that AJ's next fight will be for the world title or for the undisputed world title. So that's the plan, that's the hope. But we'll see what happens, particularly on May the 18th.
Eddie, for as long as kind of AJ's been boxing, for as many times as I might have interviewed him or others, and he's been with the media, he's never really spoken about when his career might come to an end. It's always been when the timing's right, he'll just step to the side. Now he's obviously come out saying if his body can hold up maybe another 2 years. What were your thoughts when you saw that?
Yeah, I think like 2 years is probably 6 fights. So, I mean, beyond that, what else are you going to do? Like, I think he wants to fight all the top guys. And I think the people that motivate him to fight again is Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk. Still think he wants to fight Deontay Wilder. I think he'd like to fight Zhang. I think he quite likes the idea of fighting Parker again because he's doing so well. Hrgovic. That's 6. I don't know. Yeah. So I think whilst you feel good, whilst you're motivated, whilst you're healthy, you keep going. And right now, he's in the form of his life. You know, I think he's in the best place he's ever been in his career. And, but he's also, you know, reaching that age where you start getting those questions. And I don't think there's any time frame on it. But yeah, you know, 2 years is 5, 6, 7 fights. And that sounds like, but listen, you might get there. Maybe he's flying. Maybe he's unbeatable at that stage. But he's achieved a huge amount. Trust me, we'll all miss him when he's gone. And let's enjoy what I believe is the best moments of his career.
Final one from me, Eddie, because I know you've got to go get ready for the weigh-in. Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia landing on pay-per-view in the UK and DAZN. Just your thoughts on that?
Yeah, massive fight. You know, I think sometimes you have to make the decision based around the fight. I think you see recent fights, Crawford, Spence on pay-per-view in the UK. It's nothing new. I think people are starting to realise now that this fight's actually happening. You know, Ryan Garcia's behaviour over the last few weeks has got everybody talking, and now it's 2 weeks tomorrow. I was with Devin yesterday in the gym. He looks sensational. I think he's going to stop him. I think he's going to put a major statement together, but it's going to be a big fight. Fight week's going to be massive for that fight because Ryan Garcia is going to be in front of the media, and I think it's going to be really interesting. And I think we're going to get a massive night at Barclays Centre, and a huge night again for DAZN.
Eddie, I'm going to continue to chew your ear for hours, but I've got to leave you to get ready. So thank you for speaking to me. I'll catch you in Manchester next week.
Cheers, mate.